How does the aggregate demand curve influence inflation? Have you ever wondered how the overall demand for goods and services impacts inflation? The aggregate demand curve plays a key role in this relationship. It shows the total spending in an economy at various price levels. As prices rise, the quantity of goods and services demanded typically falls, and vice versa. One major way the aggregate demand curve influences inflation is through demand pull inflation. When aggregate demand increases due to factors like higher consumer spending or increased government expenditure, it can surpass the economy's ability to produce. This excess demand leads to upward pressure on prices, resulting in inflation. Essentially, when demand outpaces supply, prices tend to rise. The aggregate demand curve can shift based on several factors. For instance, if consumer confidence rises or interest rates drop, aggregate demand may shift to the right. This rightward shift indicates more spending, which can lead to higher inflation as more money chases the same amount of goods and services. On the flip side, a leftward shift, which indicates decreased demand, can lower inflation by easing spending pressure on prices. The components of aggregate demand are consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports. Changes in any of these components can affect the aggregate demand curve and, consequently, inflation. For example, when interest rates decrease, borrowing becomes cheaper. This encourages both consumption and investment, leading to increased aggregate demand and potentially higher inflation. Inflation also has effects on real wealth and the money supply. When inflation rises, the real value of money holdings decreases. This can lead to reduced consumption and aggregate demand, which may help moderate inflation. Additionally, inflation lowers the real money supply, which can lead to higher interest rates and reduced investment, further dampening aggregate demand. Expectations about future inflation can also shift the aggregate demand curve. If people anticipate higher inflation, they may choose to spend more now, which shifts aggregate demand rightward and contributes to actual inflation. Conversely, if inflation expectations decline, aggregate demand may decrease, reducing inflationary pressures. Lastly, as aggregate demand increases, businesses may respond by raising prices. To attract and retain workers, they might also raise wages. Higher wages boost household incomes and spending, further increasing aggregate demand and sustaining inflationary pressures. In summary, the aggregate demand curve influences inflation through the balance between total spending and the economy's production capacity. When aggregate demand increases faster than supply, it creates upward pressure on prices, leading to inflation. Understanding these dynamics is essential for grasping how inflation develops and changes within an economy.